I am the king of Westeros. I wear the king's crown, the symbol of legitimacy. What's up, everyone? Kino here, back with the reaction to the final episode of the first season of House of the Dragon, The Black Queen. Now, I'll just say up front, really, really good episode with a really, really big flaw at the end, but we'll talk about that. So let's get into the episode, and I'm also going to share my thoughts on the whole series. So, this episode takes place after Aegon's been crowned. Rhaenys brings the news to the Blacks. They're called the Blacks because she wears a black dress. It has nothing to do with like the black people who follow her. Even though that's a funny coincidence. But the side of Aegon is called the Green faction, and this side's called the Black faction. But they get the news, and Daemon wants to go to war immediately. However, Rhaenyra starts to give birth. Like, the stress of the news causes her to go into labor prematurely. Again, they do the birthing scenes very graphically. I appreciated it the last time it happened. This time I was like, no, this was gross. Now, again, maybe that was the point. It's like, you treat childbirth how it is, which is, it can be very, painful and bloody and all this kind of stuff. But I was like, oh, this is a little too far for me, a little too graphic. I wasn't into this. But yeah, she loses the baby, has a miscarriage, which is very sad. But she gets through it, very quickly and like takes back, being the queen. But she decides she doesn't like necessarily want to go to war, and I'll give the show credit for this. I was saying before how I was like, if you want me to support Rhaenyra, don't just make it like well, she deserves to be queen because she's a woman kind of thing. It's like, make her earn it. Make it so she like demonstrates that she's going to be a good leader. That's the thing that I think gets lost with a lot of like, the only reason not to support Rhaenyra is because of misogyny or whatever. Like, no, she has to prove she's a good queen. I didn't feel like she did that in previous episodes. She does a lot of like backhanded shit, like killing Laenor and stuff. Well, I mean, they don't actually kill Laenor, but she intends to. So it didn't like endear me to her and make me be like, yeah, fight for Rhaenyra. I was like, fuck Rhaenyra. But in this one, like, okay, I see that like she has the right temperament. She's going to be a good leader. Again, Aegon's a drunk, so it's not that you support Aegon or whatever, but like, she's got to prove that she deserves the throne like Dany did, for the most part. And in this one, she does. She's like, I wish it had happened earlier. Again, they should have been setting up from the very beginning that, she deserves the throne, all this kind of stuff. But hey, at least in this episode, we get a sense that she strives for peace and unity above all else. So that's good. We'll talk about how that's going to change a little bit later. But so she sends her sons as messengers to go talk to the great lords of Westeros, and try to convince them to fight for her rather than the Greens. So she sends her eldest to go to talk to the Aarons and the Starks. We'll see that next season, which is cool. One real quick thing, she said that Cregan Stark is closer to her eldest son's age than hers. I don't know if I misheard that line or whatever, but isn't Cregan Stark the old man in the north? Or maybe that happens later. Maybe I'm getting my history confused, but I thought he was an old man. Actually, I don't know if maybe I have that wrong. Maybe he's called the old man in the north late because he lives for a long time, and that takes place later. Again, I'm not 100% sure. Fuck, what was I gonna say? Basically, she sends the eldest son to those places, and she sends her younger son, Lucerys, to Storm's End, which is the House Baratheon. And that's the closer journey, so it's supposedly the more safer one. Although I, being a book reader, know what happens. And I'll say that they do the sequence so well. Like, it's building up tension. The rain looks incredible. The storm, he goes there. You can see Vhagar in the distance. Vhagar's fucking huge. It looks so good. You see the lightning. The dialogue is perfect. They even include the detail, which I'll talk about a little bit later, where the Maester reads the message, which is a potential hint for future storylines. But everything goes so perfect. Aemon's there. He wants revenge on Lucerys for taking his eye. He leaves, and then Aemon comes out of the fucking storm and like attacks him, and it's such an incredible sequence. I was like, this is perfect. And then they fuck it up. They have this thing where it's like the dragons stopped obeying their masters for a minute. So Lucerys' dragon breathes fire on Vhagar, and then Vhagar is like, well, fuck this, I'm gonna eat him, and then goes and eats him. And like Aemon's telling him, like, no, like, don't do that, like, stop, because I guess he didn't want to kill him. He just wanted to scare him a little bit. And that's why Lucerys dies. And I think this is a big stumble. Again, I don't know if it's the fire or blood. I don't give a shit. But in the books that I've read, The Princess and the Queen and The Rogue Prince, this was he intentionally did it. And I think there's something that's lost in this sequence by the fact that he loses control of the dragon. It's like in the Red Wedding, if instead of like stabbing Robb Stark's wife, they just were like, whoops, I tripped, and then they accidentally stabbed her, and that set off the Red Wedding. It loses some of the tension and drama behind it if it's not intentional. Now, I watched the behind the scenes thing. I think I understand why they made this change. I think they actually did it to make Aemon look a little bit better, to show that he didn't mean to do it, but that it just kind of happened. Which I was surprised, because they've been painting the Greens as such villains this season. And so I appreciate that aspect of trying to be a little bit more balanced, but I'm like, no. Just make him, like, do it and kill him and go for it. Even if it makes him look like a villain, who cares? It would have been it's such a cool sequence. But man, they really ruined that element. I'm really disappointed in that part. But besides that, I thought the episode was really good. There's this great shot at the end where Rhaenyra, like, is overcome with grief, and she turns, and it's like we're seeing the dark side of her again, kind of similar to like what happened with Dany. We'll see that play out next season as she becomes like a darker character. Again, I'm glad that they're gonna go through with that. Hopefully, we don't know for sure, but if they go down that route with the story, I'm glad it fits with the book. But again, we should have established earlier in the season that she's like a good, calm, capable person, versus having it be right here at the end, and then we immediately pivot away. Because she will become a little bit like a Cersei type character. Like, she'll go kind of crazy with power. And I appreciate that storytelling. Like, we're seeing her fall because of all the grief she's going to suffer over the course of the dance. But even still, I just wasn't... I wasn't completely satisfied with that. I wanted to touch on the fact that the Maester read the note to Boros Baratheon. That's from the books too. And there's this like fan theory. This is not confirmed at all, by the way, but there's this fan theory that's been part of the Song of Ice and Fire universe for a while now, that basically says that the Maesters are part of a conspiracy to kill the dragons. Basically, the theory goes that the Maesters hate magic and they've been trying to destroy it. And they engineered the Dance of the Dragons and all this kind of stuff to kill the Targaryens and their dragons, because Targaryens are very magic. We saw that with the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if they'll do that. They showed this scene, so that's part of the fan theory. But again, we haven't really seen them do anything like that earlier this season, so I kind of don't think that I don't think it's real. But I just wanted to point that out, that like, oh, they at least maybe could be setting this up, which would be kind of cool. I know I'm on 10 minutes here, but I still want to share my thoughts on the whole season. So, I've thought the season's been pretty good. Like very competently made. There's a lot of attention to detail. A lot of like world building stuff that just was not present in Game of Thrones. Stuff they just didn't cover. A great example, Rhaenyra says in this episode, I was like 4 and 10. Or 10 and 4, whatever it is. But that's the way they kind of tell time. They don't say 14, they say 10 and 4. Just great little bits of Song of Ice and Fire, like lore, world building elements in there that they could have easily skipped, but they pay attention to, which I'm really appreciative of. Really great job on there. I thought each episode was very cinematic, very well done. The writing's competent for the most part. They edge into like a little bit too much drama territory every now and again, but for the most part, I thought really well done. However, my biggest thing about this show is that it's just kind of forgettable. My prediction for the show is that it will never hit the lows that Game of Thrones hit, but it will never hit the highs that Game of Thrones hit either. And for me, that's it's just, I don't know, there's just not really stuff that I'd be like, oh, I really will remember that kind of thing. Like, is there any line of dialogue you can quote from the show? The only thing I can, off the top of my head, think of is like, they are bastards from before. But again, there's been nothing this season before that. But think about Game of Thrones season 1, right? You can quote lines like, the king shits and the hand wipes. The king that I knew didn't quiver in the shadow of an unborn child. All these great, fucking lines. A mind needs a book like a sword needs a whetstone. Like, there's just tons of fucking lines that you can quote from that show. And again, this show has a little bit of a harder time because it's not prose that these books are told in. It's like, it's not like told in moment to moment, so we don't get all the dialogue from the books. A lot of those great lines I mentioned before were just taken straight from sorry, hold on here. My computer shut off, the power plug came out. A lot of those lines of dialogue were taken straight from the books, so it was a little bit almost like cheating in that sense. Like they just take the good lines and put them in there, and this series doesn't have that. But like I said, there's just not a lot of these moments where I'm like, oh my god, that's so memorable. It's nothing's like bad or really cringy. It's just kind of forgettable. So that's the only problem I think I have with the series. I just don't think it's gonna have the kind of impact that Game of Thrones had. Like, but it's good. It's really well made. It's like Game of Thrones is like one of these like action movies that's like, it might not be the best written thing, but it's like, it's memeable. You remember all the fucking lines. Versus this series kind of reminds me of like a very fancy, like, well-made art house film that's just like, you're like, oh, that's competent, that's really good, but it's like, when we go home later, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about, the fucking action movie, the memes, that kind of stuff. So, again, I'm not saying that this show should pander to the lowest denominator. Like, it shouldn't be worse writing for the sake of being like, memorable. That's what shows like, that's what a lot of modern bullshit shows do. They shoot for the lowest common denominator. But like I said, I respect this one for not doing that and for being very well made. So I feel like I've gotten to the point here where I'm starting to repeat myself. So that's my thoughts on the whole show. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed the hell out of this season. And I can't wait for the next one because I think things are going to start to get really exciting in terms of the action. I can't wait to see them I can't wait to see if they'll stick the landing or not. And I don't know if they're gonna bring in any elements from the fucking the Long Night into here too with the Song of Ice and Fire. We'll have to see, but maybe we'll see some White Walkers too, and might shed some light on that mystery, the one real mystery left open from the end of Game of Thrones. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching these. Stay tuned next year, I guess, for the next season of reactions. But I'm sure there'll be another show that's gonna pop up that I'll react to in the future. So, talk to you guys then, and have a good night.